touch of your lips, dear, but much more for the touch of your whips, dear. You can raise welts like nobody else as we dance to the masochism tango. Say our love is a flame, not an ember. Say it's me that you want to dismember.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of the A-Slut podcast that stands for Advice, Sex, Love, Understanding and Trust. Also, as part of that, it's anti-slut shaming as well, because we talk about sex, we make it more normalised and we don't judge people on what they like. The main reason behind that is that people like to fuck. I don't care about that. That's awesome. People should like to fuck. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's what we do as human beings. So that's really awesome, and people should be doing that as much as they can. Now, this week is a little bit different. I don't have a guest with me. It's just me talking to you for however long it takes to get through everything here that I have. I have been promising the Q&A session for a little while now. Now that I don't have a guest, which I'm actually quite proud of. I've gone through 12 episodes without needing to go too far into anything, which is great. So today's going to be that big Q&A session. Now, it's going to be split into two parts. There's going to be the Q&A side, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about how to realise that you're being a bad dominant, I guess is probably the layman's way of saying it. I would probably prefer to look at it more like how to improve on yourself as a dominant in a kinky situation. So we're going to be talking about that. It's an article I wrote a number of years ago that has been on Tumblr for a fair while and has gone somewhat viral on Tumblr. I think it's got about 4,000 notes or something like that now. But yes, so we'll be talking a lot about that as well. Now, something arrived for me in the mail just the other day, and I'm really, really excited about it. I'm really, really keen to get into it and really get stuck into it. I haven't been able to start it yet, but that's going to be the plan for the rest of today. After I've finished recording this and editing it and getting it out there for you guys to listen to. It's the first time I've had doing the recording on the day of release, so that's another new one for me as well. But I got a new book. Okay? I got a new book. It's quite a famous book. A lot of you listening will probably already know it, but I'm really, really excited for it. It's Come As You Are. The author is Emily Nagoski, Dr. Emily Nagoski, I should say. And it's the surprising new science that will transform your sex life. Now, I've been told to read this by a guest who has been on this podcast, Shan. She swears by it, so I thought, okay, I'm going to read it. I'm going to give it a go. I have no doubts whatsoever that it's going to be good. And even the author of another book that I have read says that it's a good one, Dr. Ian Kerner, who was the author of She Comes First, which is something that I read a little while ago. So I'm really, really, really excited for this. So it's turning on the ons, turning off the offs, take control of context, responsive desire, all of that lovely, beautiful stuff that I love talking about. So, yeah, really, really looking forward to that. Apart from that, this week's been rather uneventful for me. I left one of my jobs because I was doing just a little bit too much. It wasn't necessary. I am trying to find some more work, but that will come when it comes. I'm also planning a trip to the southwest sort of area of the United States. So we're talking Cali, a little bit of Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, New Mexico, and of course you have to go to that magnificent center of debauchery, Las Vegas, while I'm there as well. So that's probably going to happen in about 12 months or so from now. But the planning has started for that, and I'm really, really excited to do that as well. So I guess now, without further hold up, we'll get into. Well, first of all, I'm going to start with a personal question that somebody's asked me directly due to the situation that they're in. And from there, I do have a lot more sort of generalized questions. So I've got one really in-depth one where I've got a fair bit of information about it. The rest of it's sort of maybe not so personal, but still really good advice. So for once here, I think I'm actually fulfilling the advice part of the A-Slut podcast and talking to you guys about problems that some people have, some things that some people want to know, and we'll go from there. So this is been sent in by someone who wanted to remain anonymous, which is absolutely fine. You can do that too. I don't have to say your name on the podcast. That's great. So here we go. Well, I'm poly and always have been. I'm currently in my first monogamous relationship that I have been happy and okay with up until recently. I'm fulfilled emotionally for the most part, but not even close physically. He lives in Portland, I live in Phoenix. I'm not from the States, so I know that's a fair way. Those of you guys in the States will know a wee bit more about that. But even when we're together every couple of months, he's a lot less sexual than I am, and my needs are still far from met. He's not at all open to opening our relationship, and I guess I'm trying to find something to help or figure out if it's even something that can be helped. I don't know if I'm just going to have to break up with him or be miserable. I don't know. Now, this is kind of a tough one because you've got two people here that quite obviously have feelings for each other. Okay, and quite deep-seated feelings too, I think. And I think this is kind of the reason that poly exists as a lifestyle choice, as I guess just a general choice that a person can make as well. But yeah, so the reason that I think poly exists is so that all needs and desires can be fulfilled. Like if you've gone mono and it's not what you need, then you need to look at what's more important. Or this person does. Sorry. They've gone mono and yeah, need to look at what's more important, whether it be the mental health and physical needs or the relationship. And part of my thought in this is if your physical needs aren't being mentioned, and she states that she's trying to decide between trying hard and being miserable, it affects the mental state as well. If somebody's not having all that much sex with you, I feel as though you don't feel as attractive or as wanted or as beautiful at times, I guess, for lack of a better term. So that's definitely quite a big part of it. And you kind of need to have your needs as well as a priority. I call me selfish, but I'll always look after myself before anything else, I guess. So if I'm in this situation, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, this isn't working for me. I'm feeling crap about it all. It's not going to work. I don't know how to fix this. You'll have to excuse the clearing of the throat. I'm a little bit sick still. Now, I've even asked this person that the physical needs not being met do affect them mentally as well. So that's quite a large sort of red flag for me there that something needs to change here at some point, quite soon. And it's all well and good being fulfilled mentally for the most part. You know, you're happy in the relationship, everything's fine when you're together, but that physical side is still sort of lacking, I guess. And I'm a logical thinker. Okay, I think about what's going to be best for me, and the other person in this duo, in this monogamous relationship, they're going to get over it at some point. That's part of life. Breakups are part of life, so that sort of thing can change. And yeah, if you talk to him and he's not keen at all in any way, shape, or form to open up the relationship, that's sort of a little bit of a red flag for me as well. It's one of those things where you're compromising something by being with this person. You're compromising, compromising your lifestyle as a polyamorous person and changing it to suit them, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, but compromise is a two-way street here. So the fact that he's not willing for you to sleep with anyone else, to have relationships with anyone else, the relationship thing I sort of understand a little bit, because there needs to be like a deep-seated connection for a relationship in most formats, in most ways. Sex, for me personally, not so much. It's not as big of a deal as being in a relationship with somebody else. So, in saying that then, are they open to perhaps you having some fun, or even threesomes, or foursomes, or heading to swingers parties and things like that could be an option if it's purely sexual. If they're not interested in that either, then that's where the big issue sort of comes in that they're not willing to move on that at all, that it's something that you need. And they've not got a high sex drive either, which adds another whole sort of aspect to this as well, in that, if their sex drive isn't high, it's probably going to be considered uneven if you do open up the relationship. And I think that might be the concern this guy has, is that the girl, the other half of this relationship, will go out and get laid left, right, and centre, during, I guess, to the proviso that it's easier for women to get sex than what it is for men, which I generally don't agree with. Both parties want to get laid. It's just about doing it the way that suits the two people involved, I guess. But if that's the concern, then I think that's something that he would need to look at in his own life as well, and his work on in his own self-improvement. I talk a lot about self-improvement because I think it's a really important characteristic to have, is to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, something's not right here. How do I go about and fix it? How can I move through this and become a better person on the other side? So I guess I say I guess a lot because I don't know the situation exactly, but that could be a reason why he's thinking that. And that then, for me, becomes a jealousy thing. And I've talked a lot about jealousy on this podcast before. I'll talk about it a lot more in the future as well, because it is quite a major thing when it comes to poly and swinging and kink and all of the lovely stuff that I'm into. So it's going to come up a lot more. And he's sort of got to work on himself at this point as well. Could be with help from you. It could be with help from his family. It could be with help from anyone. Because he's not going to be able to do it alone. That shit's difficult. So if you're able to offer that help with him to get through that and talk about his feelings and that side of thing, then by all means, go for it. Because you're going to have to get deep with it. It's going to have to be deep conversations involved in all of this to be able to get through to the other side. And for the relationship to be stronger at the other end of it as well. I'm not here saying that all people should be going poly. I'm not here saying that he needs to go poly. I'm just trying to give a few sort of ways that I would go about things. So in summary, it's him sitting him down and talking to him about his feelings and why he feels that way. There's always the opportunity to leave and look after your mental health more than anything else, or to keep things as the status quo, to keep your partner happy, which I think is a dangerous thing because you will resent him, likely will resent him at some point for you having to give up this big part of yourself. Because, I mean, you said you've always been poly. So, yeah, that's my take on that. That's my take on that. It's a bit of a convoluted one, and it's one that's very difficult because different things affect different people different ways in different situations. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And that's what makes it a little bit difficult to answer, is that there is so many different moving things here and so many things that could change at the drop of a hat. You know, the way people think is different. The way people act is different. The way people move, their processes, the way they like things, it's all different. So you can't sit there and go, no, you need to do it this one way. It's not going to work like that. Life doesn't work like that, so why should relationships? Anyway, I hope that sort of answered that question. I think I've gone into that quite in depth, quite a bit. So I really hope that works out for you. Please do let me know how it goes, because I'm really interested. I'm really interested in the decision that you make in this situation. I'm really interested in how things end up. I'm really interested on his path through this journey as well. So I'd really like to hear his thoughts. If you do talk to him, especially, that'd be sort of amazing to have to know where he's come from and what's happening with him. And maybe I'll have you on the podcast sometime to talk about this whole transition, because it could be quite interesting. But yeah, please do keep in touch. You got a hold of me through the email at the A-Slut podcast at gmail.com. So yeah, feel free to keep that in there, and yeah, keep in touch. Got a nice big glass of milk here for me. Now, we're going to move on to the more, I guess, generalized questions at this point. This one, yeah, maybe to a degree is a little bit generalized, but also it's a little bit personal. So this next person asks, I've been having what I consider kinky thoughts and the way that things should be in the bedroom. Now, my partner's very vanilla, and what I want to know is, how do I get him to change and basically fuck me the way that I want to be fucked? Now, the first thing that I want to say about this is I don't like how that last sentence is worded. How do I get him to change? It's not about getting him to change. It's not about forcing them to change. It's about having a conversation around what you're really after in that situation. Okay? You can't sit there and go, okay, you need to change this because blah, 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 blah. Because you're not fucking me properly, because I need to be dominated, because it doesn't make me feel like a real woman when this happens, or whatever the reasoning be. It can't be get him to change. It's okay. How can we work together to create a mutual sort of response to all of this? Okay? So when I say that, what I'm really talking about is compromise. Just like I did with the last one, there's got to be a little bit of compromise here. Yeah, he's going to compromise to come up to your level and do what you like. You haven't really listed kinks or anything like that in here. I'm going to guess that it's mainly impact play and around spanking and that sort of thing, or just a really good hard rough fuck. Could be rope. I don't know. But you've got to sit down and have the conversation with him and go and say something along the lines of, hey, I've been having these thoughts around, let's use spanking as an example. I've been having these thoughts around, being spanked while we're in the bedroom and quite hard. Is that something you think that you could try next time we go at it? It could be something like that. And my hope at that point is that this person doesn't get defensive. The partner doesn't get defensive. Because a man's ego when it comes to sex is generally quite fragile. And they don't like being told that their partner's not enjoying what they're doing or whatever. But I think by the same token, in a true partnership, you should be able to talk about what you like, what you don't like, and evolve that sexual relationship, evolve your relationship in general, I guess, but also definitely evolve that sexual relationship into something that's mutually beneficial. If if one of the two parties is not enjoying it, then what's the point of doing it? I've said that quite a lot on here as well, but it's still so true and so poignant, I think, that both parties need to be enjoying it, and for both parties to enjoy it, I think you definitely do need to have that conversation around what both parties enjoy. So yeah, nice and simple. Sit him down, talk about it, what you like. And the other thought is that swinging could be part of it. You could become a hot wife, like a few women I know are. You could become polyamorous. There's lots of different options here. But it all begins with that initial discussion with your partner about what you're both getting. So there's a few personal questions in here as well, guys. So you're going to learn a little bit about me as well. You've probably already had enough of me on here, but that's okay. So when did you first start being poly-minded? So it's only kind of recently, I guess. But no, now that I think about it, I've probably been poly for a fair amount of time, because I've never really understood the need to only love one person at a time. It's not, obviously not, you non-platonically love somebody, love one person at a time. Never really sat with me, and I only had short relationships while I was growing up and going through my teens and all that sort of stuff. So looking back at it, I was probably poly-minded as long as I can remember, but not knowing what poly was. And I think this is quite a common thing. It wasn't until I joined the kink scene, which would have been about 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, that I realised that poly was a thing, and I sort of just sat there and went, you know what, that kind of sounds like how I've been thinking my whole sort of adolescent to adult life. So it was, that's 2.5, 3-ish years is about the time that I started being poly-minded, or really knew what poly was, but probably poly-minded for much longer than that. And it's been a great journey since then. How many poly relationships have you had? It's a great question. 3 or 4? It's not been that many. I'm incredibly picky when it comes to people that I spend my time with, and even more so when it comes to people that I'm going to be in relationships with. It's very important that we mesh well in many ways. I'm not very quick to compromise, but I will at some point, as long as it's right, as long as it feels right to me. And that's an important part, is my feeling and the way that goes as well. So yeah, that's how many poly relationships I've had. Now here's one that I've answered a couple of times on the podcast, and I think even when I've been on other people's podcasts, I've been on a few now. What's the difference between poly and swinging? So polyamory, and this is my opinion, okay? I'm more than happy to be told that I'm wrong, and for other people to have their opinions, and other people to live the lifestyle that they want to. So polyamory for me is multiple relationships, okay? So you're dating 2 or 3 people, you're in a relationship with 2 or 3 people or more. You could have a big poly family or something like that. Swinging, and there's that mental connection with polyamory completely as well. Swinging is more to the physical side, where a couple can go out and they find another couple that they like, and they have adult fun, they have sex, they do whatever, and that side of things. So one's more mental, one's more physical, and of course they overlap. The swinging down under guys, C and D, are probably a great example of the ones that overlap, because they need to have that connection before they fuck people as well. Whereas some people do just go out and fuck, whether as a couple or as singles, go their separate ways, come back and talk about it and sort of go from there. But for me, it tends, I guess swinging when it comes to the mental side of things is more of a friends with benefits style of things, whereas polyamory is I'm in a relationship with these people. That's my view on it. And like I said, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. I'm absolutely fine with that. Because if I'm being told I'm wrong, it means that I'm learning somebody else's point of view. I'm extending my own knowledge as well, which is always a good thing for me. I love learning, so I have no issues with that at all either. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think the difference is. And the next one is, what is the most difficult part of being poly? So a lot of these are poly-based, because I guess there's a lot of my friends, I guess, didn't realise that I was poly for a while. I don't close it off. I'm actually quite open about it, but I'm not going to rub it in people's faces and say, hey, I'm polyamorous, I blah, 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 blah. It's not my thing. I'll talk about it if it comes up. If someone goes, oh yeah, how's your partner? I'll sit there and go, oh yeah, Aaron's great, Zoe's great, whoever it is at the time, you know. Yeah, and I'll talk about it in that way. And they're like, but you were talking about somebody, oh yeah, I'm polyamorous, blah, 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 and go from there. It's a little bit different. But, yeah, I am very, very open about it. Most difficult part of being poly, there's two things, I think. The first one is scheduling. You need to have a really good calendar to be poly, especially if you're dating, 2, 3, 4 people at a time. Your calendar gets absolutely mental, and it can be a challenge. It can be a challenge fitting everybody in and trying to give everybody the same sort of quality time as the other partners that you have. And the second one is obviously a human trait that most people sort of deal with, is the jealousy side of things. I don't really get jealous anymore because I have complete trust and faith in my partners when I have partners, that they'll let me know what's going on, you know. So jealousy is not a big one for me anymore, but I think it still is for a lot of people. And the way that I deal with that is I look inward and I go, okay, why am I feeling this way? Because I've said it a couple of times, is that jealousy is not an emotion in and of itself. It is a bundle of different emotions, like anger, like sadness, hatred, fear, FOMO, fear of missing out. You know, there's all of these different things that are jumbled into jealousy. And the way that I try and look at it from that point is that I'll look into myself and go, okay, what's actually causing this? Why am I feeling this way? Why is this hurting me in such a way that I want to lash out? Which is the natural sort of reaction if someone's hurting you, is to lash out. And I often realize that it's just me in my own head going, okay, this isn't really what's going on. Why is this person off with somebody else? What are they getting from this other person that they're not getting from me? And that's what I've been able to change. And I've sat there and gone, well, I can't provide everything in my partner. So if they're missing something, they can get it from somebody else. That's fine. If it makes them happy, then I'm happy. There's nothing wrong with my partner being happy. I'll go back to the advice at the start that I gave. If my partner's not happy, then it's kind of selfish to keep them in that relationship, I think. You know, very, very difficult, and very, very selfish, and very, very harsh on the other person to try and keep them in that situation. So, and then you got to try and find the balance of when's too much. So if somebody's spending all of their time with a new partner. You know, you've got that new relationship energy, and you sit there and you're going, oh, this actually feels kind of crap. But my partner's spending so much time with this new partner, and not so much with me, and that can be quite difficult as well. So yeah, there's a couple of different ways, a couple of different things around the jealousy that can be really, really quite difficult, as well as obviously the timetabling and the scheduling of everything, especially when you've got a new relationship. I just spoke about NRE, new relationship energy. It's always exciting getting into a new relationship. It always is. They're not going to change that. If you're not excited about the relationship at the beginning, what are you doing in it? It makes it kind of difficult to understand why you're in a relationship that you're not enjoying. But hey, I'm not here to judge. That's all you guys on that one. But yeah, most difficult part of being poly, there's two parts to that. There's the scheduling, which is a little bit of a joke one, but it is also true. And the jealousy side. And the jealousy is the more painful one as well to try and deal with. And the more difficult one to deal with, I think, as well. Because it makes you look at yourself. And a lot of people don't like looking at themselves in a mirror and going, okay, what's going on here? Why am I acting this way? Why am I feeling this way? How do I fix it? And that's the big question people don't ask themselves, I think. How do I fix it? And sometimes you need somebody else to help you with that. Sometimes you need somebody else to go, hey, this is how you fix it. And then you go, God damn, I knew that, but I didn't think about that. So, yeah. I'll leave that answer there, otherwise I'm going to ramble on for probably a fair while. But that does bring us to the end of the Q&A section of this episode. And we're going to move straight on in to 10 reasons you suck as a dom. So this is intended for male dominants and female submissives. But it's not limited to this audience, but understand that is its intended audience. Number 10. You don't understand the basic concept of behavior modification or behavior association. The explanation for that, I can't tell you how many times I've heard of dominants say something along the lines of, if my submissive crosses a line, then she gets 10 lashings when she gets home. The reason this is a problem is that you're associating the lashings as a negative. You're engraving in your submissive's head that if she crosses a line, she will get beat, and that is a problem if your submissive is a masochist. Yet you wonder why she keeps exhibiting certain behaviors you don't like? Because she might enjoy getting beat, you idiot. If they're a masochist, they're going to like getting beat. And if they're getting beaten when they behave inappropriately, then guess what? They're going to keep acting that way, people. It's not just a magic switch. The resolution for that, educate yourself on the power of behavior association and behavior modification. There's a really, really cool book that I would recommend for people in this situation. It's called Behavior Modification, Basic Principles. And that's by David L. Lee. That will tell you all you need to know about, what actions give what consequences and how that makes somebody sort of feel. If you're training a submissive who is a masochist, then lashings probably isn't the best punishment for them. There are punishments and there's punishments. Two completely different things. So if you're talking about punishments, then hitting them's not going to work. Causing them pain's not going to make them change their behaviors. And then you've also got to be careful about the fact that you are actually changing someone's behavior and you're changing their mindset around things. And kind of mind-fucking them, I guess. And that can be quite dangerous in and of itself, of course, if there's the mental state gets altered in that sort of situation and can make things actually quite dangerous if you do them the wrong way for years and years to come in the future. So, yeah. Behavior Modification Basic Principles by David L. Lee. Go and check it out. Number 9. You think you should allow, or you allow, your anger to fuel your dominance. This one seems like common sense, guys. This seems like common sense, but it's really not. When you're angry, you shouldn't be playing in any way, shape, or form, even in a 24/7 dynamic. Sometimes it goes out the window. So there was a point in my DS life that I noticed. I corrected my submissive better when I was angry or irritated, and it's not cool. It's really, really not cool. Truthfully, it shows a lack of control on the dominance end, because they can't even control their own emotions, let alone controlling how somebody else feels about the situations. So you think about it, why do you feel like you have to be bothered to, inverted quotations, perform better? You are the one that dictates the pace, no one else. There's nobody sitting there going, hey, you have to go and do things now. Take a step back, relax a little bit, and then go for it. I understand the releasing of anger. I understand the releasing of feelings in general in a scene, but don't fly into whatever you're going to do whilst angry. You can't allow that anger to fuel what you're doing. So find peace with yourself. Understand that you don't have to be angry or irritated, and just relax. Figure out what makes you happy, and in return your submissive will feed off your vibe and want to be better because you're leading her down a good path. The correct path, if you will. Okay, so we move on to number 8. You take care of yourself. You take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself. This is a little bit more out of left field, I guess, for a lot of people. Because people think, okay, taking care of your submissive is key. But if you can't take care of yourself first, you won't be able to take care of anyone else properly. So if your mental state isn't right, and you are wallowing in self-pity, your mental state isn't great, all of these sorts of different things that can happen in general life, right? It's nothing new, it's nothing amazing, but it certainly happens. Life can get you down. But if you can't look after yourself and know what to do in those situations, how are you going to help somebody else in those situations? How are you going to be able to treat them the way that they need to be treated if you can't even treat yourself the way that you need to be treated? So that can be quite dangerous as well. So treat yourself first. If you need to heal, then heal. If you need assistance, if you need your submissive to simply listen to you, then do it. Figure it out. It's not as difficult as a lot of people make it out to be, but it's also quite a lot more dangerous than people think it is. If you're putting everybody else before yourself, it's like, again, I'll go back to the beginning segment of the show. If you're putting everybody else before you, it can affect you mentally and tire you out, and that's when mistakes can happen, and you do things and say things that you don't mean to. Everybody's done that before, right? Everybody's said something that they really didn't mean to say. It just sort of came out at a moment of stress. That's what needs to change if you're exhibiting those sorts of behaviors. Here's quite an important one. Number 7. You think it's a sign of weakness to open up to your submissive. Bullshit. It's not a sign of weakness to open up to anyone. And I think this is especially poignant for male dominance. Like I said, this is done from a male dominant perspective. But if you think it's weak to talk to somebody about your shit, talk to your submissive about your shit, you're not going to grow together, I don't think. they're going to respect and trust you a lot more that you are able to talk to them about shit that's going on in your life. So, for whatever reason in today's present day society, we do believe that anytime a man exhibits any sort of inclination of emotional vulnerability, he is considered weak and unfit to be a man. And we do try and change this, and I do believe it's slowly coming around, slowly but surely coming around, so that men will talk a little bit more. In New Zealand, I can't remember the statistic, but I'm pretty sure men are committing suicide far, far more than women are in New Zealand. And it's because we have this big Kiwi macho bullshit that I've talked about in previous episodes as well. Of, if you cry, you're not a man. You're not manly enough. If you're of a different build, you're not manly enough. If you talk to somebody about your issues, you're not a man. What a load of fucking bullshit that is. I'm not saying to go open up to a random co-worker or stranger or tell them a life story or anything like that. What I'm saying is talk to your mother, your father, your best friends, your submissives, someone who really cares for you. Or you care for. And open up to them. They deserve to see that side of you. It is their reward to see your weakness. In fact, they get to see this side that no one else gets to see. And that's such a huge reward, because it shows how much you actually really do care for them. And that it's kind of like the point that I just brought up a moment ago, that people you'll grow closer and you'll grow together as people if you're opening up in this sort of way when something's going wrong, and you're feeling a little bit weak, a little bit down, a little bit, you're finding times tough at that point. Talking to these sorts of people will help the situation, and you will grow with that person. I promise you that. You will grow with that person together. Both physically, you're going to be together physically a lot, but emotionally as well. And I think that's even more important than the physical side for sure. And on that note, we move on to number 6. Number 6 is that you're a selfish bitch and you think that DS is all about you. I don't think this one actually needs to be explained all too much. A DS dynamic is a partnership between the two people. If you think it's all about you, then fuck you. Absolutely just fuck you. It's not about you. It's about both of you working together for the greater good of each other. I can't help but laugh. I remember writing this a long time ago, and it was such an obvious thing. And it turns out that it's not a common thing for something that is as obvious as this is. So, if the relationship revolves around you getting your dick sucked whenever you desire, you ordering her to fetch things as you please, you ordering her around whenever you please, basically you getting all the perks that a dominant gets in a DS relationship. But if you have little or no consideration for your S-type and her well-being, then you're not a dom. You're basically an abuser, and fuck you. You're a user, a manipulator, and you don't appreciate what you have until it's taken away from you. And it will get taken away from you. That is pretty much a promise. If you treat somebody badly, it gets taken away from you. If you treat your kids badly, they get taken away from you. Treat your animals badly, they get taken away from you. This one may not be taken away from you so much, more than they'll pick up on it and they'll leave. Or somebody will show them the error that they're making and they'll leave. won't be taken because no one's coming and forcibly taking them. But they will leave. If you treat anyone like shit, they'll eventually leave. And then you don't realise what you have until it's gone. They paid paradise to put up a parking lot. Oh, what a song that was. But I digress. I've actually been really good at keeping on topic on this one. Mainly because there's nobody else talking as well to make it difficult for me, I guess. Now, number 5. You were and are a piece of shit of a human being before you stepped into DS. This one applies to everyone. When you step into this amazingly beautiful and intense dynamic, you're either going to blossom or you're going to perish. You really never stopped to think that all your problems were not going to be discovered? You really thought that you could push aside all your deepest, darkest secrets and your significant other would never get to see it? Get the fuck out of here. Figure out your shit. Go to counselling, go to rehab, get treatment, do whatever you need to do to get help. But understand that the problems in your personal daily life will affect the problems close to you, will affect everybody that's close to you. Stop hurting everyone else and stop hurting everyone you love. They don't deserve it. So, I guess this is slightly missaid, I think even, because it may not be that you're a piece of shit human, you may just not realise that you've got a lot of shit there that you are yet to deal with. So that also comes into this as well. In quite a big way, I think. It's very, very difficult to come into a DS relationship with a whole bunch of... I don't want to say baggage, but it's kind of what it is all of this emotional, mental, physical, all of this stuff that is not making you the best human that you can be. That can fuck you up, man. It really, really can. So, yeah, go and sort your shit out. Go and do what you need to do to get on the level and then go for it. Because once you've overcome that, man, you're going to be so much better for it. You're going to be so much better person. And you're going to attract a lot better people. And we all want to feel attractive. There's no two ways about that. But I think that attractiveness, that animal magnetism, if you will, comes from the inside more than anything else. So, and once you sort all that stuff out, you're pretty good here. Number 4, you refuse to admit, or you don't understand that a DS relationship is in fact a relationship. And this is something that I've talked about on my pods when I've talked about swinging and polyamory and stuff like that. The polyamory side of things, I've never been, I guess, in a romantic relationship with some of the people that I've been in a DS relationship with. But I still consider that a relationship. And that's why I consider it being polyamory. You know, because I still have a relationship with that person. I still have a responsibility with that person as well. In a way, especially when it comes to aftercare and things like that. So just a side note on that, I'm talking about a DS dynamic here, not topping and bottoming. The difference for me is that there's a deeper connection with a DS relationship versus topping and bottoming, which is more focused on the play and the scene itself. So I don't do a lot of topping and bottoming, personally. I'm more of a DS guy, where everything's sort of negotiated and there's the aftercare aspect. I spend a lot of time with them outside of play as well, and I deem it as an incredibly sexual act and sensual act as well. It might be incredibly violent, that's for sure. I've had some very violent scenes, but it's still for me, at that point, I'd still call it a relationship. May not be a full-on romantic relationship like you're thinking. It may not be dating, but there's still a relationship there. But you will eventually develop feelings for your submissive, to an extent. You will eventually learn to care for them. If you don't, you're a fucking asshole. The key word is you should. You should not be emotionally disconnected from your submissive, because that shit can fuck them up, especially when it comes to aftercare and stuff like that, where you've spent half an hour beating them or whatever with different objects, and a hug afterwards for another half an hour or something like that, just to cuddle, can be greatly necessary. And if you don't care for your submissive, that could be completely fucking missed, and it's terrifying. And yeah, I find that absolutely scary, to be honest. If somebody's not doing that, I would be running for the hills. But yeah, it is a relationship if it's DS. If it's topping and bottoming in just one scene, that's a little bit different. The aftercare should still be there, but if it's a one-off, then yeah, the feelings perhaps aren't there quite as much. So you're not developing those feelings a little bit more. But in a DS dynamic, then it is a relationship, and it should be seen as such. So understand that in order to have a successful, healthy DS relationship with your submissive, understand that A, it is a relationship, and B, you have to care for her and nourish her and cherish her and treat her like the amazing woman that she is. Because our submissives are amazing people. They really, really are. They give all of this power and this trust and their bodies, their minds, their everything to us, and they should be cherished and nourished and cared for, if for no other reason than that reason alone. Because man, that's some powerful shit right there. It really, really is. And it's almost like you're saying treat your girl right, but it has the added nuance of the fact that this is a DS dynamic and it is a DS relationship. Number 3. You purposely try to disconnect your emotions in your DS dynamic. Oh boy, I remember writing this one, and it hit me hard, because you don't want to be that person who's seen as an abuser or anything like that, which sometimes to the outside world it can be, but yeah, don't hold back. Let yourself be vulnerable from time to time. So what's the matter? Are you scared of getting hurt? Are you scared of someone actually loving you? Are you scared of someone stepping into your heart and seeing all the dark shit that's in there? All your problems, all your demons? Do you think nobody will ever love you? Your partner doesn't deserve you to hold back. Put yourself in her shoes. Here she is giving you her heart completely for you to do as you please. Not just her heart, her mind, her body, her soul. And you can't even give her the honor of having your heart as well. That's not cool, man. That's not cool. How would you act if your submissive only followed your orders 65% of the way? How would you feel if she always held back from certain areas and told you no quite often? It feels horrible, man. Nobody likes it. Nobody should ever hold back to each other. It should be a work in progress. Now, I'm a guy who has incredibly high walls. It can be difficult for those to be broken down. But as soon, and working together is able to bring those walls down, and I open up, and it becomes really quite nice, I guess. And it can hurt down the line, sure. I've been hurt multiple times. It happens. But as long as you're working towards getting that just a bit better, you're going in the right direction. Work on giving your heart completely to the one who deserves it. Strive for that. Pursue it. And I might just add in there, not the one, but whoever it is, the people who deserve it. It will change your life forever in so many positive ways. It will break down so many walls and barriers. It will open a world to new feelings, new sensations, new communication. And boy, talk about the sex. The sex is so much more intimate and so much better when you're able to get all of that off your chest, and when you know your lover loves you and will do what it takes to please you. You give as much as you get back in life. And that's definitely the case with a DS dynamic. So it's a give and take, really. You're expecting your submissive to give so much of themselves, and you don't want to give anything back. That's harsh. That's really, really difficult to deal with, and why I think a lot of DS dynamics that do fail is because of that reason. And yeah, so open up. Don't be afraid to be a little bit vulnerable at times. It's kind of cool to be vulnerable at times because it allows you to get everything off your chest. They're seeing that you're opening up, and that bond between you and them gets so much closer and so much more beautiful and stunning and just delicious. There's a word that I'll use for that, is delicious and meaningful. I like my DS dynamics to be meaningful, have a purpose, have a drive, and have it hot. Of course I want it hot. Who doesn't want their sex to be hot, guys, huh? Everybody. And once you're able to break down those walls, break down those barriers, to use a wrestling reference, break the walls down, it will become a lot better. Number 2, you're not honest with yourself. And this can happen to a lot of people. It happened to me. I was very, very... I couldn't see my flaws very well. I could have been considered cocky, arrogant, all of those sorts of things. And if you're not honest with yourself, like I wasn't, you can't properly grow, you can't properly heal, and you're kind of limited. I had a lot of trauma growing up, which is why I put on this cocky, arrogant sort of persona. It is who I am, there's no doubt about that. But it was also a protection sort of thing for me. And that's where you can't properly heal comes in. Can't properly grow to become the person that I am now, talking about all of this sort of stuff. And running my podcast and talking about consent and talking about all of this sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's a big one for me. You can't really truly develop into the dominant that you need to be if you can't identify what behaviours need changing. Like with my cockiness, like with my arrogance, like thinking I was the best thing since sliced bread. It does need to change if you want to become a better dominant. But not just that. That needs to change if you want to be a better person in life as well. If you can identify areas of improvement within yourself, then you're going to be a better person. Not just a better dominant, not just a better lover, not just a better... you're going to be a better human. So what you really need to do at that point is take some time to yourself, reevaluate your current position in life. Why do you have such a hard time being honest with yourself? And it might not just be about you, it could just be about the situation that's happening around you. The people that you hang out with. Anything like that. Why do you always try to convince yourself that everything is fine when it's not? Don't you see the harm that it's done to you? The harm it's done to your family, to your submissive? Take a good, long, hard look at yourself and realize the damage that you are causing to everyone else. Forget about dominance with this one. This one topic. I'm speaking man to man. As a man, you need to be able to look yourself in the eye and admit the shit you need to correct in your life. Because no one else can do that for you but yourself. Remember, you are the leader. Therefore, it's ultimately your decision. And whatever decision you make is final. Now, another big one in this as well is I put up a thread on Twitter. I put up a post on the Facebook at the A-Slut podcast, for those of you that don't know, about something that I noticed just the other day. And I'd been guilty of this horrendously in the past, and I was reminded of it as well, which I don't mind because it means there's improvement for myself in there. So there was basically quite an attractive young woman, I would say probably mid-20s to early 30s, really sort of something else. From what I could tell, I didn't really look at it, didn't really see her face. She walked past me as I was on the way to catch my bus to go home from work. And what I noticed actually quite disturbed me a bit, because I realised that I've done it quite a lot as well. I started watching the people around me. It wasn't until afterwards that I realised how much I'd actually done it. Started watching the people around me. There was one man who crossed the road just in front of her and instantly crossed back after she'd walked past. There was another two guys who walked past. Actually, no, sorry, the first guy stopped, stared, and gawked the entire time that she was walking past. Two other men walked past. I heard their mutterings to each other about what they would do to that woman if they had the chance. I mean, that was quite unsavoury, to say the least. Every man that I saw for the rest of that walk would not stop staring, and I couldn't help but feel and think how uncomfortable that could make that poor woman feel. It didn't seem to faze her, but in saying that, I could not see her face. But if it didn't, that's just as scary, because it's happened so much to someone that they need to get used to it. And this is why women get defensive. This is why women don't want to walk alone. And this is why us as men need to look at this sort of behaviour, which is a flaw, and is a bit terrible, and we need to have just a little bit of class, a modicum of respect, even for these wonderful women. And the reason that I've told that story now on this podcast is, like I said, because I've been that person before, and I've made people feel uncomfortable doing that sort of thing before as well. But I noticed it. I looked myself in the eye, like I've said in here, and I admitted that it was something that I had done, and I admitted that it was something that I needed to change. Hell, even some of the Facebook messages that I've sent to girls in the past have been pretty fucking atrocious, really. But I've looked at myself and gone, that shit needs to stop. Right now, that decision is final. And that was me being honest with myself, saying, this is not who I want to be. This is not who I want to portray myself to be. This is that nothing good can come of this. So I stopped. It's as simple as that. Number one, the final one, which is a super important one, which is, I guess, why it's at number one. Because it can be quite dangerous. Number one, you have stopped learning. I don't give a fuck who you are, what you know, or who you came from. There is never an excuse to stop learning. The only time you can stop learning is the day you die. Stop lying to yourself. If you think you have it all figured out, just wait and see a couple of years from now. The truth is, you can always learn something new. You can always make something better. Now you can create peace from this, knowing that you're always learning. You can break yourself down over and over and over again, fail multiple times, get knocked to the ground over and over again, get back up. You can fail, you can suffer, you can love like no other. There's no limitation to what you can do when you put yourself in a position to learn. If you learn to truly accept that you should never stop learning, then one day you will know that you are complete as a dom. You should never think that you know you are where you need to be, you should know you are where you need to be. And that knowing is not going to be, I know everything. It's, okay, this is exactly where I need to be at this phase of my existence, at this phase of my journey through the wonderful world of BDSM. And the only way you can get there is by constantly learning and failing over and over again. It's not until then, at that point only, when you shall find peace. And you can find peace while still learning. There's something I'll add to that. Because learning is such an important thing that gets overlooked a little bit. You know, there can be new technologies that come out. There's different. The biggest one is different people react different ways. You know, if you interact with one person one way, you say the exact same thing to another person in the exact same way, they're going to take it a completely different way. So during this journey, you're going to play with more than one person, more than likely. More than likely, right? So, fucking you need to learn different things with different people. Every person you meet, every interaction you have is going to be different. You learn more in that junction, in that situation. So that learning's always happening. And if you close yourself off to actually learning that, then it's kind of fucking terrifying when you sit there and go, no, I know it all. You're going to be my submissive. That's it. And yeah, fuck that for a laugh. I'd be running in the complete opposite direction if someone said that to me. God damn. And obviously, everything that I've said here today can be said for submissives as well, and for submissives to notice this sort of behavior, and for submissives to learn about the dominant side of things as well. So it's not just one little thing here, guys. It's really not. It's such a conglomeration of things that can make or break a DS dynamic, a DS relationship, even just a regular relationship with some of these. I noted on some of them that this is basically just human to human stuff, not anything to do with whether someone's, in a DS relationship. It's just about being a good human to each other, which makes a huge difference to it as well. So, on that note, never ever stop learning. There's always something more out there for us to get our hands around, to get our lips around, our mouths around, and to improve ourselves as well. Thank you very much for listening through all of this. It has been my voice the entire time. I know that people can get a little bit sick of that, but that's why I did the whole interview side a little bit. I do believe we'll be back to the interview side next week. I do have a guest coming on, which should be a lot of fun. Talking to somebody new. What I will ask people to do is Naughty or Black. I was on an episode of her new podcast, which is coming out in the start of October, so a couple of weeks away. And it's all about deviance, ladies and gentlemen. All about deviance. And I talked to her about edgy kink mainly, because I'm into some stuff that some people would consider a wee bit too far. So is Naughtier, so that made for a really fun conversation. I was guest hosting on there, so that was a really, really good chat, a really, really good episode, and I hope that you guys will go over to that when it does come out. I will post links when I do have them, but her Twitter is @NaughtyOrBlack, and you'll be able to find all of the details and everything from that on there. So I will ask you to go and do that. As always, you can contact me on the socials at the A-Slut Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or you can email me at the aslutpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know how you think the Q&A went. I've not done one of these before, so it is a bit of a new situation for me, and feedback is always welcome. I love learning about how to improve on this side of things. So thank you all again, all my little sluts, and I will speak to you next time. Thank you for listening.